All right, welcome back to the SilmFilm script discussion, season 3, episode 7. Are we on 7? Holy mackerel! We're on episode 7. How did that even happen? I must have not been paying attention. But we've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, and interestingly, the host spent all of their time on one of the things that we need to talk about, which is the curse of Mandos, or the doom of Mandos. But we have a bunch more other stuff to talk about.
We do.
That is
things are still happening in Beleriand, even though the Doom of Mandos is going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like we
found a copy of the first edition of the Silmarillion, so I now have an actual fold-out map of Beleriand.
Nice. That will be
very convenient and useful.
Yes.
Yeah. The little one I had on my computer, the other edition copy with the little end paper map. I've got the big fold-out now.
Nice.
Yeah, that's better because it's hard to see stuff on the little one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, you can zoom in if you have a computer, if you have a digital copy.
Yes.
Yeah, which I've put the map at the first slide on the PowerPoints this season because it's useful, and Corey does keep flipping back to it to show people on the map what he's talking about. So it's coming handy.
So what do we have? We have werewolves that we need to cover. We need to cover the attack.
The attack on the Havens will be happening, and so we introduced that Sauron's werewolves were on the move last episode, and now we have to show what they're doing, what they're up to. So they have to approach the Havens and attack the Havens in this episode.
Okay. I have some ideas about what to do as far as because the host had wanted the retreat to the ships to be something that they had planned, like as a planned fallback position.
That know the attack was coming.
Well, they know that something's up. They know that there are evil forces on the move and that they are in danger.
The background for this is that in the previous episode, Círdan was invited to move his elves to Menegroth for safety.
And declined.
And he declined, saying, our ships, though. We can't just move to your cave fortress with... Yeah, that doesn't work for us. So having declined the retreat to safety, it would make sense that they had at least a plan in place of what they would do in the event of danger. It doesn't have to have been a, well-rehearsed...
Right.
Everybody knew the plan thing. It just, there had to have been a backup idea of what would we do if we were in danger.
Right.
So does anyone besides Círdan know about his divine mission to build ships so that everyone can,
pretty much just Círdan knows that.
Right. He probably doesn't spend a lot of time talking about it.
Melian also knows. She has a pretty good clue, but she only alludes to it very cryptically because she's Melian.
Who do we see as our main protagonist for our A plot, that being the Noldor plot?
I think Finarfin is the obvious choice, so we should at least consider him.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
This is a decision point, and also his exit until season 32 or something. So
yeah, and I don't think he's ever gotten an episode where he was the protagonist yet.
Finarfin is going to get a focus when he's making the decision. We are going to cross the ice, which is episode 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That decision happens in the episode after this, yes.
And we will see Finarfin again in that next episode because we will show his return to Tyrion. Well, his return to Valinor anyway. And the after effects of what happened there. So he does get a coda after this, but this is his big moment to
I agree.
Have a point of view and express it and make a decision.
Okay. Our protagonist for our B plot, that being Círdan and the ships. I feel like Círdan is the logical choice here.
The only other elf of the Havens we've introduced is that in the previous episode we had a captain of a ship named Galdar.
Yeah. Yes.
So
who may or may not survive to the Council of Elrond, or may just be another elf named after him.
Right. Well, that's been very unclear at this point.
It's not one that we need to be afraid of repeating. The name Gelmir gets repeated at least two different people
Right.
named Gelmir. I mean, if you're repeating Glorfindel or actually Círdan is the credit. Sort of, it wasn't the name of a really famous guy, but you know, Thelion and you have to worry.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to just use the name and not even speculate whether or not it's the same guy. But it was requested that if we were going to do an elf from the Havens, we should name him Galdor for reasons. So I think we should. I'm
fine
but as
with
far as
that.
his character, we've established is that he is a captain of a ship and he's done some exploring up and down the coast.
Yeah.
Many character yet.
I have some things I wanted to do in this episode, especially early on in the first act.
Yeah.
So have the acts been plotted out? I'm looking at.
No, that's what we have to do tonight.
Right.
We have to plot out the acts tonight to figure out what is happening throughout the episode.
Okay.
Yeah, that's essentially our job, is to take the general ideas that come down from the hosts and then make an actual episode of television out of it, essentially.
Right. They make more conceptual choices. For instance, they spent a good chunk of their time when discussing this episode discussing the meaning of the Doom of Mandos.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
a prophecy or is it a punishment?
Right. Prophecy, punishment, curse. What are we portraying here? And so they were very clear on what they wanted that to look like. But that's a philosophical question more so than a so-and-so needs to say this and so-and-so needs to do that. And this all happened before that happens. Like they didn't spend any of their time on that because that's not their focus.
Right. And to be honest, are you asking where they came down on it?
Yeah.
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah. They came down for nuanced of like, let's not make this one or the other, but with the understanding that sometimes you get self-fulfilling prophecies because if you do something, there are natural consequences.
Yeah.
And so part of what Mandos is saying is now that you, Noldor, have done this, this is what awaits you. Like, that's what's going to happen. There's not really a way around that because it's the natural consequence of your actions.
Right.
But with the understanding that he's a Vala and his words have a lot of power, and therefore it's not just the idea that he may be put into their heads, the idea that they should be paying attention for betrayal from now on. And then suddenly there's a lot of betrayal going on right after this. Like, cause and effect, which came first? Not clear.
Yeah. I feel like Fëanor was going to do.
Oh,
honestly,
yeah, 100%.
So much.
Of course, Fëanor would have done it anyway. But by accusing him of that, did that push it in that direction even more so? Because part of Fëanor's betrayal is fear that Fingolfin is going to turn on him at any time now.
Right.
So
yeah, but it's also just he wants to screw him over.
He does.
Well, he's never really liked him. That's true.
This guy is trying to take away his crown, and he's got more of the Noldor on his side than Fëanor himself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fëanor is run by a lot of fear through this portion of the story. So fear leads to paranoia very easily. Now, I'm not saying that Fëanor would have had no doubts of betrayal without Mando speaking up. I'm just saying Mando spoke up, and the next thing Fëanor did was make sure that Fingolfin couldn't betray him. So it's like,
I mean, thematically, it looks like cause and effect, but really, the person who put the thought of betrayal in Fëanor's head was Melkor.
Yes, that is also true. However, before we get too much further down the road of
rehashing with
betrayal, we actually have some work to do because you know what has not been discussed at all for this episode? The frame story. Not even a little bit.
There's
nothing.
Yeah. Well, where we ended it last episode is that the Dunedain had a meeting in Bree where Halbarad and the other Dunedain leaders had discussed the wolf problem that they've run into, and acknowledged that it's bigger than they thought it was, and that they should organize a wolf hunt to take care of these interlopers. So that's where we left things, that there's going to be a wolf hunt. So it seems like this episode should be, and then they have a wolf hunt.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, of course, Estelle wants to participate. Gilrain and Elrond want him to be dragged back home, and
Right.
They do,
So
but
have-
they're not actually in contact with them at the moment.
Yeah, the twins,
Oh, yes,
Elrond's
but-
sons, have filled this neat little interim position of representing their father, and yet not dragging Estelle home by the scruff of his neck, despite that being the obvious thing they're supposed to do here.
this way, although they know that that's what father wants.
They know
Oh,
that Elrond wants him back there, and they'll get him back there eventually. They're just in no hurry to carry out that order because they realize that Estelle is trying to assert himself as an adult, and they kind of want to let him make his own mistakes and figure out on his own that it's time to come home. Because if they drag him back, they're kind of afraid he's just going to turn around and run away again, unless he knows that's where he's supposed to be. So they're kind of letting him get there instead of enforcing it.
And they're confident they can protect him from getting like
Right.
eaten by werewolves.
Exactly, and they think that there's not a big enough issue of danger that they're enough protection that this is not a problem. So they've kind of made that decision on their own without talking to their father. So it's going to be an interesting thing when they all end up back home and Elrond's like, "Where have you all been?" but we'll deal with that fallout at the end of the season most likely, or at least later towards the end.
Is this going to be Estelle bit off more than he can chew, and the twins made a mistake, or is it going to be like
I think that they're. Sorry, I cut you off. I apologize.
or is it going to be like it works out okay? And he killed an orc last time, right?
A couple episodes ago, he did kill an orc in his first battle. The twins killed the rest of the orcs.
Yeah.
And he fought one badly and just managed to kill it. So they were able to keep him safe, but he's not really ready to do this on his own.
I almost feel like he should be more effective. I mean, Merry and Pippin, Merry managed to kill like 2 of them while Boromir was getting shot to death.
Yeah, and Sam killed an orc in his very first fight as well.
Like, all so, and
That's-
has no training.
That's
fair. That's actually a very fair point.
Merry and Sam are both adults, though. Estelle's only 16.
True.
So there's Estelle's been trained, but he's still a kid. Merry and Sam were not trained, but are competent grown-ups who had good aim and good dexterity already.
Yeah. There is that awkward. When do teenagers get the growth spurt in which their arms and legs are longer than they expect and they can't?
Right here.
which is why we don't want to make Estelle too competent, because he should be adjusting.
He should be a little awkward. But for this episode, though, we need to figure out what, and also ultimately to answer your question before, I think this is going to end. I think it's somewhere in the middle there. I think that, yes, this was a bad idea. Absolutely. Estelle bit off more than he could chew, and the twins were wrong to do this. However,
words will be spoken when they get home.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. However, Estelle is going to learn and grow out of this, so evil is good to have been, essentially.
So
spoiler alert, Estelle lives.
How is this going to connect to how is the frame going to connect to the 2 stories that are being told in tie them together to each other?
Well,
since they're like not related.
That's basically what we have to figure out is how are you talking about overall?
Yeah, because we've got the Doom of back, and then you've got the werewolves or whatever it is attacking Avens, and other than they're not really connected.
Yeah, I agree.
So
the overall theme of the season connection is we have to make tie-ins between Estelle and Feanor, which is tricky because they're very different people. But Feanor did rebel and leave a fairly idyllic home and went out to face battle that was a little more biting off more than he could chew. Estelle's kind of doing the same thing on a much smaller scale and with much less serious consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So there are thematic. There's thematic tie-ins without being a direct parallel. And then there's wolves in this episode, in the main episode, and there's wolves in the frame. So hey, wolves.
Right. And I think we can have somebody in the frame make a pronouncement that seems to kind of, what I'd like to do in the frame is have somebody say something that causes our two rivals, Estelle and Hamilcar, to go off by themselves somehow. If I know, I'm working on it. This is a work in progress here. I mean, like we said, there, everybody's preparing for a wolf hunt. It's possible that somebody might say something that sounds like it's going to limit Estelle's involvement.
So he wants to go off and do it anyway, which
right,
vaguely will parallel to the stealing of the ships, but
right, yeah. Well, I mean, you got to be. The reason why it feels a little disjointed is because it's because these two stories are in two very different places at this point.
They have something in common.
What's that?
They have something in common, which is prudent retreat from bad ideas. The Falathrim do not sit around and die on their hills. They literally jump on their ships, leave, and Finarfin says, "Guys, this is a bad idea. I'm gonna go home now."
Yeah. So we have better parallels to the story with the Falathrim and the story with Finarfin than we do to the story with Feanor and Fingolfin. Between the frame anyway this time, which is fine. I don't think we need to parallel to the Estelle equals Feanor all the time in the frame, because that doesn't work. Estelle does not equal Feanor, so we shouldn't.
The twins end up prudently retreating at this point. They're like, "Hey, let's earn his crap."
You're saying that having the twins try recommending a prudent retreat and Estelle doesn't go along with it. Is that what you're suggesting? I'm not sure. I didn't catch all of it.
Well, they could suggest it, or they could decide between the two of them that it's not even the but like the contrast between and Finarfin prudently stepping back out of the 16-year-old kid doing what 16-year-olds do.
I see. So instead of paralleling a decision in the frame with a decision in the story, we will have the decision in the frame be that, "No, Estelle, don't," right when Finarfin makes a good choice.
The twins could be telling him this story and be like, and it would have been better if all of Noldor went home, even though the two of us didn't exist then. They actually should have made the decision to go home, and they didn't, and they failed. What happened? Lots of people. And Estelle's like, "But they wouldn't exist if they hadn't come here." And they're like, "Well, sometimes evil is good to have been, but it remains evil."
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Estelle made that exact point to Elrond at the end of season 1,
and referred to. He hasn't referred to it yet this season, though, has he?
Right.
So it would be a good time to bring that back in to the story, I think.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back. If you're watching us live, we'll be back in a second. If you're watching us on YouTube in the future, definitely like and share the videos. If you like and want to share them. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe. Check out the links below for information on the SilmFilm project, Signum University, Mythgard Academy, plus Mythmoot 5 coming up June 21st through the 24th. It's going to be awesome. We'll be back in a minute.